want you to imagine just for a second that you are stepping onto like a luxury floating resort.
Oh, right. Yeah, the ultimate vacation.
Exactly. You've got the warm ocean breeze, the endless midnight buffets, the sparkling deck pools. I mean, you are surrounded by thousands of people with this whole army of crew members basically anticipating your every single need.
Right. It's marketed to you as the ultimate picture of safety and relaxation.
Yeah, but here's the catch. The moment that ship pulls away from the dock, you're completely isolated. You have just stepped right out of the laws of the land you left behind and, into a space where the rules are entirely different.
It is a profound psychological shift. And honestly, most passengers never even register it.
No, never.
You feel like you are walking around a massive floating luxury hotel, but legally speaking, you are operating in a totally different universe. The protections you rely on in your hometown simply do not exist out there in the same way.
And the stakes of that illusion are terrifying. We are looking at the 2011 case of a 24-year-old British youth worker named Rebecca Coriam who vanished without a single trace from the Disney Wonder cruise ship.
And to do this justice, we are drawing on a really diverse stack of sources today.
We really are.
Yeah, we're looking at UK parliamentary records, specifically Hansard, which is the official verbatim transcript of debates in the British Parliament. We also have the official news release from the Royal Bahamas Police Force.
Right, the official police angle.
Exactly. Plus, we are incorporating undercover journalism by the writer John Ronson, who actually bought a ticket and went on the ship to investigate. And finally, we are pulling data from the advocacy group, International Cruise Victims.
It is a massive stack of information. And before we get into the timeline of that morning, we really need to set the stage for how we are handling this material.
Yes, that is a crucial point. As we synthesize these sources, you're going to hear entirely conflicting allegations.
Oh, absolutely conflicting.
There are claims of corporate cover-ups, accusations of severe police incompetence, and then counterclaims of proper, thorough law enforcement investigations. So we want to be absolutely clear from the jump here. We are not taking sides.
Right.
We are not endorsing any specific viewpoint, theory, or accusation leveled by any party. Our goal today is purely to lay out the factual evidence, the official statements, and the prevailing theories provided in these sources. We are just putting all the puzzle pieces on the table so you can evaluate this mystery for yourself.
Perfectly said. So let's look at the baseline. Who was Rebecca? Well, she was 24. She was a sports science graduate from Plymouth University in the UK. And by all accounts in the source material, she was highly motivated, totally beloved by her peers, and just had this radiant, outgoing personality. She was working in youth activities on the Disney Wonder, which was a job she'd been doing for, I think, about 9 months.
And by all accounts, a job she really enjoyed. She was working with children, organizing sports, basically living a life many young people dream of when they sign up for cruise ship work.
Yeah. So fast forward to March 22, 2011. The Disney Wonder is sailing down the Pacific coast of Mexico, heading toward Puerto Vallarta. Rebecca is scheduled to start her shift at 9 a.m.
Right.
But 9:00 a.m. rolls around, and she doesn't show up.
Which is highly uncharacteristic for her. And missing a shift on a cruise ship triggers an immediate protocol. There's an announcement on the ship-wide public address system. They conduct an internal search of the crew and passenger areas, and eventually, security begins reviewing the ship's massive network of CCTV footage.
Okay, let's unpack this because we need to pause on this footage for a second.
Right.
What they find is the last known sighting of Rebecca, and it is deeply unsettling.
It really is.
The timestamp is 5:45 a.m. She is in an internal crew area on a crew telephone, and she is visibly distressed.
The sources describe her looking highly agitated. She has her hands deep in her back pockets. At one point, she pushes her hair back in a very specific way, which is a gesture her father later recognized as a normal nervous habit for her.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, but her overall demeanor is one of intense emotional turmoil.
And a young male colleague actually walks up to her while she's on the phone. He clearly notices her state, asks if she is all right. She replies, "Yeah, fine," hangs up the phone, and walks away. That is it. That is the last time she's ever seen on camera.
But the detail that jumps out from this footage isn't just the distress.
No, it's what she's wearing. She is wearing men's pajamas.
What's fascinating here is how that wardrobe anomaly interacts with the psychological environment of the ship itself. When you read the accounts of cruise ship life, like the blog posts from former crew members mentioned in John Ronson's investigation, you realize the lower decks are just a psychological pressure cooker.
Right, they're intense.
Crew members live in these tiny, windowless, below sea level cabins. One worker actually likened their quarters to Harry Potter's closet under the stairs. They
Jesus.
work relentless hours, 7 days a week, for months on end. The scheduling is so tight they even hold mandatory staff meetings at 2 a.m. because it is the only time the entire crew is off duty.
So you have this highly disorienting subterranean environment where you literally never see natural light unless you go up to a passenger deck.
Exactly, it's that kind of sensory deprivation. And into that context, you drop this detail of the men's pajamas. Her family, and the private investigators they later hired, theorized that this wasn't just a casual, quirky outfit choice.
Right, it meant something.
They suspected as a sign she may have desperately thrown on whatever garment was closest to hand in a blind panic. It suggests an urgent need to escape a dangerous or volatile situation in her cabin.
I mean, a distressing phone call is incredibly unsettling on its own. But the real mystery is the physical path she supposedly took after hanging up that phone. Because Disney's answer to that question is where this case, frankly, stops making any logical sense.
According to the official narrative initially put forward by Disney, Rebecca was tragically swept overboard by a freak wave. And the specific location they pinpointed for this accident was the crew swimming pool area located on Deck 5.
Okay, wait a minute. How do you get swept over a solid steel wall? Because John Ronson actually went to Deck 5 during his undercover trip. It is essentially an internal feeling crew space. The wall is over 6 feet high. There is no direct ocean view through standard waist-high railings there. It is a massive steel barricade designed specifically to keep water out and people in.
That is the exact architectural discrepancy that fueled so much of the family's suspicion. The physical environment of Deck 5 makes an accidental fall, especially being swept by a wave over a 6-foot solid barrier. Highly implausible. You would have to actively scale that wall to go over it.
And yet, this is the exact location Disney pointed the family to. They even laid flowers there as a memorial when the family came aboard. So why point Deck 5 if it makes zero physical sense?
Because of the bizarre physical evidence that was presented to support that narrative. The primary proof that she was at the Deck 5 pool was a pair of flip-flops found neatly placed near the edge of the water. Disney pointed to these shoes as definitive evidence she was in that specific location.
But when the family actually gets these flip-flops, they immediately spot glaring contradictions. First of all, the shoes were a size and a half too small for Rebecca.
Yeah, they didn't even fit her.
And her friends on the ship also confirmed it was a style she despised, like pink, flowery, Hawaiian print. She completely hated it and never wore it. But the most mind-boggling detail.
Yeah, this is the part that's really hard to explain.
The flip-flops actually had a different crew member's name and cabin number written in marker on the side.
The forensic implications of that are staggering. The singular piece of physical evidence tying her to the Deck 5 freak wave narrative didn't belong to her, didn't fit her, and had someone else's identity written on it.
It makes no sense.
And if you believe the freak wave theory, you have to ask why the shoes were left neatly on the deck instead of being washed away by the water that supposedly took her.
And the physical evidence gets even darker, right? Because when the family received her belongings packed up from her cabin, they found a pair of her favorite shorts. But they were violently ripped at the front.
Which led private investigators and maritime experts like Bill Anderson and former Scotland Yard Commander Roy Ram, who reviewed the case files, to strongly suspect a violent struggle had taken place.
Yeah, struggle.
Ripped clothing points completely away from a simple, tragic slip-and-fall scenario.
Then you add the camera discrepancy. John Ronson's investigation revealed that the 5:45 a.m. CCTV footage, the one with the distressed phone call on the men's pajamas, actually took place on Deck 1, not Deck 5.
Furthermore, if you were looking for a plausible place on that ship for an accidental fall, you would naturally look at the jogging track on Deck 4.
Right.
Rebecca was a sports science graduate, a fitness enthusiast, so she might have gone for an early morning run to clear her head. The railings on Deck 4 are standard height. An accident there is physically possible.
But Ronson noted that the Deck 4 jogging track is covered by at least 4 highly visible overlapping CCTV cameras. If she fell from Deck 4, it would definitely be on tape.
Yet no footage of her falling from Deck 4 or anywhere else on the ship exists. Or at least none has ever been produced for the family or the public.
Which is wild. I mean, think about it. If you were in a normal town and you had a missing person, violently ripped clothing, evidence belonging to other people placed at a supposed scene, and camera locations completely contradicting the official timeline, well, that instantly triggers a massive forensic police response.
Instantly.
Crime tape goes up. A forensic team locks down the building. Every single person in that area gets formally interviewed.
Yeah. But as we established at the start, on a cruise ship, normal jurisdiction simply does not exist. The
Yeah.
ship is a legal island.
Yeah, let's break down this legal black hole because this is the part that I think will shock anyone who has ever booked a cruise vacation. The ship leaves Los Angeles, USA. It is sailing off the coast of Mexico. It is owned by an American corporate giant, Disney, and the victim is a British citizen.
Right.
Logically, you would assume the FBI, the British police, or Mexican authorities would swarm the ship. Who investigates?
None of those agencies had primary jurisdiction. This is where the maritime concept of flags of convenience takes over the narrative.
Right, flags of convenience.
The Disney Wonder, like a massive percentage of the global cruise fleet, was registered in the Bahamas. Therefore, under international maritime law, only Bahamian authorities had the legal jurisdiction to lead the investigation into a disappearance in international waters.
So wait, by flying that flag, a multi-billion-dollar American corporation is essentially bound by the legal authority of an island nation 1,000 miles away.
It is the nautical equivalent of setting up a shell company in a tax haven. Corporations use flags of convenience for a variety of reasons. Favorable tax rates, bypassing strict U.S. or European labor laws for their international crew, and crucially, operating under different regulatory and liability frameworks. The country of registration has the ultimate authority over what happens on that vessel.
Wow. And the resulting investigation, or, lack thereof, created a massive international controversy. We are looking at Hansard records from the UK Parliament, where this case was heavily debated. You have British Member of Parliament Stephen Mosley and Shipping Minister Mike Penning expressing absolute outrage on the floor of the House of Commons.
The parliamentary record details their intense frustration with the mechanics of this jurisdiction. Because the Bahamas had legal authority, they dispatched exactly one lone detective to investigate.
One guy.
Superintendent Paul Roll. He had to fly 1,500 miles from Nassau, arriving in Los Angeles 3 days after Rebecca vanished. According to the family's testimony in the parliamentary records, he barely interviewed any of the 3,700 passengers and crew on board.
The family noted he spent basically one single day on the ship before concluding she simply fell overboard, but, and we need to be careful here, to maintain our strict impartiality, we cannot just take the parliamentary outrage as the final word.
No, we have to look at the official documentation from the Royal Bahamas Police Force.
Right, what do they say?
We have their official news release from December 2011, and it paints an entirely different picture of the timeline. The Bahamian police stated that Superintendent Roll was dispatched promptly and undertook several days of onboard investigations.
Okay.
They claim this included repeated physical searches of the ship, formally interviewing co-workers, and analyzing both CCTV footage and her personal effects.
The release also pushes back on the idea that he was working entirely alone, doesn't it?
It does. The official statement explicitly notes that the FBI and police from the UK provided assistance as requested during the process, and their ultimate conclusion, quoted directly from the release, was that no evidence has been found to suggest foul play.
So we're looking at two entirely incompatible realities presented in our source material. On one side, a grieving family and British politicians claiming gross negligence. On the other, an official police force claiming a thorough multi-agency inquiry found nothing suspicious.
Yeah.
But it highlights the core systemic issue. Think about airline travel. If a crime happens on a commercial flight midair, the 1963 Tokyo Convention dictates that the country where the plane lands has jurisdiction. It is clear-cut. But on a cruise ship, it's like you're in a floating embassy of a country you've never even visited. It's a floating loophole.
If we connect this to the bigger picture of the cruise industry, the implications are chilling. In the source documents, Captain Michael Loy, a senior vice president of the advocacy group International Cruise Victims, provides essential context.
Right. What does he point out?
He points out that states like the Bahamas, Liberia, and Panama register about 60% of all cruise ships globally. But these are often nations that fundamentally lack the vast financial resources and manpower required to conduct complex, forensic, international investigations.
So a country might sell the registration to boost their economy, but they can't necessarily deploy a Scotland Yard-level forensic crime scene unit halfway across the world when a young woman vanishes.
Precisely. And Captain Lloyd cites a deeply troubling statistic to highlight the danger of this system. According to their data, 86% of crimes reported on cruise ships are sexual assaults.
Oh, man.
Victims of these crimes often find themselves trapped in this exact jurisdictional void. The flag state is geographically distant and ill-equipped to help them, and their home country has absolutely no legal authority to board the ship and intervene without explicit permission.
It leaves families feeling completely powerless, and when official investigations leave these gaping, unresolved holes, human nature just takes over. The vacuum gets filled by strange post-disappearance anomalies, undercover rumors, and competing theories. Which brings us to the bizarre digital aftermath of Rebecca's disappearance.
Yes, the digital footprint left behind in the months following March 2011 is incredibly messy and hard to reconcile with a simple accident.
So Rebecca vanishes on March 22, but in May 2011, 2 whole months later, Rebecca's parents receive an urgent email from her bank. The bank is notifying them of suspicious financial activity occurring on Rebecca's account. And then in September, her uncle discovers that her Facebook password has been actively changed.
Which immediately casts doubt on the idea that she was simply swept out to sea in March.
I do have to play devil's advocate here, though. Couldn't the bank activity just be automatic withdrawals, like maybe a gym membership, a streaming subscription, something that finally hit the account after a billing cycle?
It is the most logical assumption, but the source material pushes back against that theory.
Really?
Yeah, the bank specifically flagged this activity as an irregularity to the parents. Banks typically do not flag a recurring monthly Netflix charge as suspicious to next of kin. It implies active, unusual usage. Furthermore, when the family painstakingly inventoried the belongings returned from her cabin, they realized Rebecca's physical credit card was missing.
Wait, her physical card?
Yes.
So someone, somewhere, potentially had her physical card and was using it months after she vanished. That alone suggests a narrative infinitely more complex than a tragic slip on a pool deck.
It certainly fueled the competing theories that began to circulate rapidly, particularly those uncovered by John Ronson during his undercover trip, as well as theories endlessly debated in online communities dedicated to unsolved mysteries.
I want to walk through the theories Ronson documented, starting with the one that seemed most prevalent among the crew members he secretly spoke to. He noted a lot of whispers about a tragic accident or suicide stemming from a complicated relationship.
Ronson heard consistent rumors among the crew of a very intense, fiery love triangle relationship that Rebecca was involved in on the ship. The theory circulating below decks was that the extreme distress seen on the 5:45 a.m. phone call was the immediate fallout from this relationship drama.
Right.
Proponents of this theory suggest she'd either tragically chose to end her own life or sought isolation on a high deck in a state of emotional distraction, where she accidentally slipped.
But that theory slams right into the brick wall of the physical evidence. I mean, it doesn't explain the violently ripped shorts, it doesn't explain how she got over a 6-foot steel barrier on Deck 5, and it certainly doesn't explain why her camera footage magically ends on Deck 1.
Exactly.
Which leads to the second theory Ronson and the family explored, the sighting.
Right. A day before the one-year anniversary of her disappearance, her father received an email from a woman who claimed she was 85% sure she had seen Rebecca in Venice, Italy in August 2011. She claimed Rebecca was walking with a dark-haired man and appeared healthy and content.
Which, if she is in Venice, she is alive, but how does that work practically?
It's tough logistically.
The family had her passport, it was found in her cabin and returned to them. How do you travel from the Pacific coast of Mexico to Italy and live there for months without a passport?
It makes the sighting highly improbable. Memory and facial recognition are notoriously fallible in missing persons cases. While it offers a glimmer of hope, it mostly just adds to the psychological torture for the family, leaving them wondering if she is out there somewhere.
Which brings us to the third and perhaps darkest theory uncovered by Ronson's interviews, the cover-up.
Ronson spoke to crew members who explicitly told him, and I quote, "Disney knows exactly what happened, and everything here is taped."
Wow.
The implication from these crew members is that footage of the actual event, whether it was a violent assault, a tragic accident, or a suicide, does exist. But the theory goes, it was actively suppressed to protect the incredibly lucrative, family-friendly brand image of the cruise line.
The theory suggests they laid flowers at Deck 5 to create a neat, tidy narrative of an accidental fall over a high wall, intentionally ignoring the 2 small flip-flops, the ripped shorts, and the Deck 1 phone call.
That is the core of the cover-up allegation. But again, we're reporting the theories and rumors present in the sources. The true events of that morning and the existence of any suppressed footage remain entirely unverified.
So how does a case with this many contradictions actually end? Legally, it ended with a partial resolution. In 2016, the Coriam family settled a lawsuit with Disney out of court for an undisclosed sum of money.
Right.
Civilly, the matter is closed. But criminally, the official Bahamian police case remains open, as her fate has never been definitively accounted for. So what does this all mean?
I think what this deep dive synthesizes is the terrifying friction between two completely different worlds. On one hand, you have the manufactured magic of a luxury vacation, a multi-billion-dollar world meticulously engineered to feel perfectly safe, controlled, and happy. On the other hand, you have the harsh, unforgiving, centuries-old reality of international maritime law. It is a world where jurisdiction is murky, investigations are fragmented by geography, and accountability can literally vanish over the railing. Rebecca's case is the tragic intersection of those two realities.
It really is. I mean, if you were a passenger on that ship enjoying your breakfast buffet on Deck 9, you would have absolutely no idea a massive jurisdictional crisis was playing out just a few decks below you.
None at all.
And for you listening, I think the takeaway is a heavy one. The next time you book a holiday on the ocean, the next time you hear that ship's horn blow and the cruise director yell, "Hello, vacation," over the PA system, remember that the moment you step off solid ground, you are stepping out of the legal protections you take for granted every single day. You are placing your trust in a system that is incredibly complex and, in many ways, fundamentally fragmented.
And that reality leaves us with a final, provocative thought to ponder that goes beyond the specifics of this tragedy. We live in an era of unprecedented, continuous technological oversight.
We really do.
We have real-time satellite tracking that can pinpoint a mobile phone anywhere on the globe. We have sophisticated facial recognition and continuous global connectivity. The ocean is no longer a dark, disconnected void where ships vanish for months at a time.
Right.
So, is the century-old concept of a flag of convenience fundamentally obsolete? As technology completely eliminates the vast isolation of the sea, perhaps it is time for international law to finally catch up. We have to ask if we can design a modern legal framework, ensuring that what happens in international waters no longer stays hidden in international waters.
It is a question that definitely needs answering before another family receives a phone call from a bank in the middle of the night. Think back to that luxury floating resort. It's beautiful, but the water beneath it is deep, and the legal framework governing it is incredibly thin. Keep that in mind the next time you look out at the horizon.